are live camera. Are you ready to be live?
I'm ready to be live.
Cool, because I just realized that I forget I don't know how to do this without the editor view, so I just put us live. We are live now, and
Yeah,
I
I,
asked
I
you
just saw us going live.
that.
So,
Okay, well, I appreciate that you were able to just roll with that like that. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
all good.
So, we're here at the TTRPG Test Kitchen, and we're going to talk about our goals and standards of conduct once again, because that's what we do when we start out. Let's see. What do I do there? Why am I not getting any of this stuff? Why am I on a video? Come on, dude.
I can talk about it. I got it up right now.
There we go. I am now paying attention. I did something else weird. So our goals, did you want to read the goals and standards of conduct? You are welcome to.
Okay, yeah, I got them up. Do
Yeah,
you go read the whole thing?
sure.
Okay, I always forget. It's been too long. So, goals and standards of conduct of the TTRPG Test Kitchen stream, starring Hans Chun and Kevin Wynn. Participants are respected. Everyone involved gets the same high level of respect as a person. Everyone will be called by the name they prefer, the pronouns they use, and can use any social media handles they like. Discussion is positive and affirming. There are no bad ideas, only choices. There's no superior game system or method of play. When discussing how a game is built, you can express an opinion and ask questions, but the goal of the discussion is a positive, critical discussion of design that improves the play experience and makes the designer feel respected and heard. The door is always open. Participants can choose to leave at any point. The stream can end early if desired. There is a scheduled end to respect the schedules of all participants, which the stream will not exceed. If a participant leaves, the stream can always return. If a participant leaves the stream, they can always return. A break can be taken at any time as needed. Chat is welcome, but they are optional. This is a stream, so it has an audience. The first priority is participant safety. The second priority is a productive, affirming discussion. The third priority is interacting with chat. That interaction is in the interest of adding to the discussion and growing social followings for participants. And those are
You did
goals
it.
and standards of context.
You did it. That's all we talk about. Yeah, I know. It was very nice you offered to do it. Thank you. I was busy
Yeah, no
eating a
problem.
sandwich and handling our little technical meltdowns.
I mean, you do all the tech work. I might as well do some hosting work.
But honestly, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah.
So today we were planning on talking about just a couple of things. I think that we start out with introduction. We do our introductions and vamping in our format. So for me, for my introduction, I'm Hans. I'm here to talk to my good friend Nit about game design and have fun. Um, that's everything. This is really all I'm here for. Nit, what is your current bestseller status?
My current bestseller, I believe. Let me see, where is it? I believe Unbreakable Volume One of the Unbreakable anthology is currently a silver bestseller on DriveThruRPG. Hopefully, soon to be gold. Hopefully, still going strong.
It's
Real
awesome.
proud of that. Yep. I'm Nit, or Kevin. My pronouns are he, him. I kind of design games. I kind of write adventures. I do my best, like all of us. I'm here
You
to
know
talk to
what?
my friend Hans about the games that we design and like the projects that we hope we won't abandon anytime soon.
Oh, ouch. Okay, shots fired. Yeah,
I
so
was calling
I
myself out more than anything.
were you. Okay, we can say that's true. So yeah, and I also use he, him pronouns. In the future, we've talked about having guests, so I feel like we've established the idea that we can handle guests responsibly for at least that tiny, tiny portion. Something to think about. Okay, things to share that we worked on this week, if anything, in game design. I'm going to talk about the world's simplest war game kind of thing. It's not really, I'm sure there's easier war games to play, but I've got this very brief concept for a war game, and we're going to see how that works. And then also, I want to talk about how that's changed my thoughts on some other games that I've gone through. Because some game ideas sound really good until you think about what you'd like to spend your time doing. And then we have our main topic, which I think is going to be about inspiration and iteration, and secondarily, that war game. But we'll eventually do some closing statements. Nit, try to remind me, we should try to do a raid. If we can
Yeah.
remember to do a raid, that is socially responsible of us and a nice thing to do, so
Hmm.
we should try to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's see. Talking about inspiration iteration, talking about Heart of War, what was I going to mention here in addition to all this? I want to plug another thing. And I was going to talk to you about this privately, Nit, but since I haven't and we're here now,
Yeah.
we'll just talk about it on the stream. Have you ever listened to the Friends at the Table podcast?
I've listened to a couple episodes, but I have not listened to regularly. I really
Okay.
enjoyed the ones I listened to. I don't have the time to dedicate to another tabletop stream podcast.
So fair. And right now, this is my worst time I've ever had for listening to tabletop type media because I can usually catch 1 to 2 podcasts and 1 to 2 streams a week while I'm working. And that's
Mhm.
acceptable in my work environment. It is great. But when I'm at home, I have too many distractions to make that really work for me where I'm actually grokking what's going on. So I
Yeah.
just don't do that. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about my home
Mhm.
situation. Just in general, it doesn't give me the same level of focus that I have at work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that, Friends at the Table has been my I'm going on a run or I'm driving here to there podcast I'm listening to, and I'm enjoying it
Mhm.
because it's playing Beam Saber right now in its current arc.
Ooh.
And you and I have been talking about mech games a lot.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, well, Beam Saber looks really cool because it will be so much lighter than picking up Lancer.
Lancer.
That's so wrong. First off, it is not in
Is
any
it?
way lighter. It's fictionally dense.
Oh,
There
okay.
is so much setup you have to do in the fiction that
Oh, okay.
it's a very dense game to play. And I think it has been designed very, very well. It is dense in a way where the choices you make impact the story and the level of detail you need to know at any given time. Like the
Mhm.
system remains that Fortune in the Dark, simple to understand but hard to master kind of system.
Mhm.
But there is such a breadth of possibility in dealing with all that. I think that they have hit the really sweet spot of this is a thing that we do. Here's a system that is simple to understand, and we're going
Mhm.
to do exactly as much as we need to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's good.
Mhm.
I think that if you were to look at it like a second time, like Lancer, I'm concerned that it's so much a kit for doing whatever you feel like that it
Yeah.
requires each person to understand like a high level of all of the things that are going on.
Yeah. Fair.
And Beam Saber has some very cool like ideas that make
Mhm.
it more of a group effort.
Mhm.
I'm also really obsessed by the idea they use clocks for your personal drive.
Mhm.
So I've been listening to Friends at the Table. I'm only 5 episodes into their current arc out of 20, and
Mhm.
they've got 2 teams that are playing off on.
Okay.
So it's been 2 with 1 team, 2 with another. Now I'm back to the first team.
Mhm.
The thing that's great is they had one of the best scenes of a team where everybody on Team B immediately decided they wanted to get out of their starting situation, and they're just going to bolt and stop playing the game effectively.
Mhm.
So this is like what people think of when they think of like a chaotic or an evil party kind of thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
everybody's out for themselves. They have their own thing they want to do. Their goals are to leave.
Mhm.
And it got handled really well by the person facilitating and the people playing. They had
Mhm.
a very good meta dialogue about how they wanted to achieve their outcomes and what they got out of it. And
Mhm.
they figured out why they were actually fighting.
Mhm.
It's got to be one of the best pieces of super boring game audio I have ever heard, in that nothing was really happening.
Okay.
But the conversation was so mature,
Mhm.
so responsible, and it was such
Mhm.
a frank use of safety tools that took 10 minutes.
Okay.
I honestly cannot think of something I would have rather listened to at that point. It was really good.
Oh,
So when I
I
subscribe to their Patreon later, it'll be because of that.
I did not know that they had started a Beam Saber campaign. I might jump in on that and try and get there because, like, I know they have other shows that are kind of interconnected and all this stuff. And there's, like, when the backlog is so long, I kind of just I'm like I don't have the time to catch up. Like
Yeah,
I dropped off of Critical Role season 2, like much as I like those folks and regardless of my criticisms of them and their whole thing, but I like their show. But I'm too far behind. I just had to let it go. But like see
yeah.
like that they have Beam Saber, which I wanted to check out, and it's 20 episodes is in the grand scheme of things is not too bad, especially considering
Mhm.
what's going on now. But yeah, I'll definitely, I'd love to check that out. And when you, I want to like sort of dissect that. So one
Let's
thing,
talk about it.
when you say Saber is fictionally heavy, is that fiction that Beam Saber offers you that you have to use, or is that the group building their own fiction that they need to have such a certain degree of fiction built in order to play?
That's a really good question. So the fun thing about Friends at the Table is they redid all of the setting elements.
Mhm.
They kept the broad strokes of how different government factions work so that they'd be able to use the scaffolding that's built out for your crew, which they call a squad, and for your setting, like the different factions as they happen. But then they
Mhm.
got rid of all of the world stuff.
Yeah.
So they did so, in my opinion, very successfully, and everything makes sense to them. But yeah, the idea of if you think about a Forge in the Dark game like Blades in the Dark, you've got your crew, you've
Mhm.
got the opposing factions that surround you at all times, and you've got the idea of how you map out those two things. They have the playbooks, and then to add something harder on top of Beam Saber, they have a person and a mech, and they
Yeah.
need to function totally differently.
Yeah.
And the systems in which they get hurt, upgraded, the way they act, the way that pilots interact with them, all of that stuff is totally different.
Mhm.
So when you play Beam Saber, you're playing two different parts of the game. You have the pilot on the ground, you have the pilot in the mech.
Mhm.
So dealing with all of those things, and then ideas like my squad has a secret base, and in that base there is XYZ, and then my faction has an additional power, an additional thing. All of those like mechanical elements interacting. There's a lot of
Oh,
fiction you have to make work right.
okay. That doesn't sound too bad then, because like a problem I have with a lot of games is like when there's such a degree of fiction, and it doesn't matter how much I might like the system, if the fiction just does not click with me, I can barely get through it. Like
Yeah.
as I've tried to read Blades of the Dark, God, maybe half a dozen times, but I just whale punk is not my thing. I cannot. I just don't, and I just can't read a plain and boring or sort of a stripped down SRD. I can't just read the SRD. So I'm like, I read a bunch of Forge of the Dark hacks and everything, but I would as much like none of them do heists. I love heists so much. I wrote a heist for Unbreakable, and but so I want to give it a real college try for Blades, but man, Whale Punk and Dishonored are just not my jam.
That's so fair. I mean, everybody's got to have something that interests them. So I feel like Beam Saber to me has a lot of things that are cool about it. I like
Mhm,
the general way it flows. I like the way it's written. In
mhm,
an alpha stage, I feel the same way about looking at the rulebook for Beam Saber as you do about looking at an SRD. There's
mhm,
no art to break it up. There's no high level, like interesting stuff. So,
mhm.
you better just enjoy the grind because that's what you're going to get out of the read, right? You just gotta read.
As opposed to Lancer, which has beautiful art and so much art, and the layout is beautiful, but but the mechanics themselves, at least at the skim I did, are so crunchy that I kind of just my eyes glazed over. I was just like, ooh, pretty picture, ooh, pretty picture. It's
Yeah.
just like words don't matter, just pretty pictures.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest difference between the two is Beam Saber is very focused on how the people in the game interact. And Lancer, I don't know how much Lancer really cares about that at this point, one way or the other. But your squad and the way that your squad does stuff is
Mhm,
very important and detailed in Beam Saber.
mhm,
And I like that. The thing that continues to make Lancer unattractive for me is the same problem I have with 13th Age and Shadows of the Demon Lord. When they take the idea of having a skill that's not a combat skill and they just abstract that to being a thing that you can figure out on your own, to me that tells me the focus of the game is combat. And while I
mhm,
like some combat in my games, I don't want to play a game where that is my default position on how to interact with the world is
mhm.
combat.
Like I'm not familiar with 13 Age. I know it by reputation, but I haven't read it or watched any actual plays of it. But that sounds like how the most popular role playing game in the world handles like all non combat situations like persuasion and deception and stealth and things like that. Is that kind of what do you think?
So the fourth edition of D&D, yes, they're all basically they're built from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Shadows of the Demon Lord I think has a lot in common with 13th Age, has a lot in common with fourth edition. Fifth
Mm.
edition, like there's at least a lot of skills to pick from. And you
Okay.
get to pick like two. So hey, you've
Mm.
got a lot of skills when you start for your 20 level journeys. You're gonna have 3, 4 skills you're okay at. It's like
Mm.
I'm not terribly fond of that either, to be frank. I
Mm.
mean, it's not that great.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like my why I don't need another D&D campaign anytime soon feeling. It's like for that, most things are going to devolve to combat. So, okay, what were we talking about? Beam Saber is cool. You should check it out.
Mm.
Inspiration-wise, this is part of, I think, why I've ended up trying to write a Forge in the Dark war game this week. Because of the fact that I enjoy doing Beam Saber so much, or looking at Beam Saber.
Okay.
So, everybody kind of like hits their things they like, right? Um, let's talk about what kind of things you're thinking about as being inspirations. What have you been looking at or thinking about this week?
Oh, well, since we last met, I have done zero design work, really,
Which is
and I've
totally
just
fair,
been
right? We do that.
yeah, yeah. It's just been bad times at the El Royale over here, and I just been playing. I've been grinding Destiny. I watched Jess over on go_JG play one mode of Destiny that was new to me, and I just got like this looks so fun. I just jumped back into it after not playing for like 2 or 3 years, and I'm hooked again, and I'm
Wow.
grinding that, and then so that gave me like I don't like playing that, and like there's in Destiny it's sort of near-ish future sci-fi fantasy, and the whole there it's like it's on Earth and all this stuff, and you basically fight aliens and monsters and like eldritch horrors. And they're I liked their framing of respawns because it's like sort of an MMORPG. They don't really handwave respawns. Respawns are fictionalized as like you have this small artificial intelligence that like gets attached to your character, and like they through the power of this totally not godlike all powerful technological advanced being can just revive you as much as you want as long as this little AI companion is with you. And I liked that and I kind of I was I wrote up like 2 lines of like in a game idea where like you just revive like you get unlimited revives until or like instead of like a piece of technology if I because fantasy is like my kind of thing I like fantasy is like my bread and butter so I was just thinking like if you get attached to like a saint of a god and there's a limited number of saints and each saint is like the embodiment of like some aspect of the world or like human experience or something. Like you probably get all the 7 deadly sins for all the bad guys, and then you get all a bunch of different virtues and things, and like one of those bonds to you, and then like as long as that thing is still with you and still alive and doesn't hate you, like you can get revives because like I like combat, but like I I just don't as much as I like my characters dying, I understand not everybody else does, and like I as a GM, I also don't like my players dying because that throws out so much fucking prep. I, and like all these plot points that I was excited to throw to the player, like their character on. So like I like while I can use it, it's not the same. So I was thinking about like some sort of fictionalization of like respawns for characters in a fantasy game, and this was kind of yeah, and I like and it kind of plays on. I had an idea for like if you want your character like for a threat to the characters, like playing on true names. Like if somebody found out who your saint was and
Uh-huh.
they killed your saint, then you are no longer a hero. You lose powers, you lose abilities, and you're fucked. You're gonna die. You lose respawns. It's like there is some danger to it, but like that is a long term thing. That is something like fucking investigating your ass out and like
Yeah.
hunting you down. That's not like some random band stab you back while you're.
I like
So
that.
there's still some danger, but like also that's something that you're probably going to see coming. It's not going to be out of the blue or anything like that. So there's still some buy-in of danger, but like the general premise is like you can just adventure and not have to. You can take risks because you got respawns.
Right, right.
And
And I mean that's something that could be fun, right? I mean if you know the goal of the game is like you could be in combat and it can be deadly and you'll be okay afterwards. You don't have to re-roll. I mean
yeah,
that could be a fun kind of mechanic that people can get behind and enjoy.
mhm.
So yeah, I like that.
And then you got to play with like, oh the big name. Like not every saint is good. Like I said, there's 7 deadly sins like probably. So like bad guys, like big name bad guys, they have saints too. So like you got to investigate them and you got to research them. And like if you want to take them out, if you want to take out the phylactery of the Lich, you got to find the phylactery. Like if you want to take out like fucking the God Emperor, you got to find out who his saint is.
That's fun. Yeah, that's real fun because you get two choices then. You've got, okay, well, I just need this guy gone for a week, so I'm just going to take out his, I'm just going to take him out physically now, and yes, he's going to come back and he's going to find me. But I've got, hey, like 24 hours to get out of town. Or
Yeah,
else you've got the other version, which is, I'm trying to take somebody out permanently, really requires some investigation.
and
Uh-huh.
you got to you. Hopefully they don't notice you and they don't like know that you're looking for them, so they don't start looking into you. Because then if they
Right.
find out yours, then you're both on even ground.
That's a lot of fun. I like that. I like where that ends up being position-wise. Let's see. What was I going to mention? Inspiration-wise. So we talked about the idea that like some weeks you're not going to build.
Yeah.
I think inspiration is really important because if you're playing and you're running and you're doing stuff all the time, that's emotional, creative work.
Hmm.
I feel like for a game, I both get emotionally both invested and tired, And then I
Mhm.
also feel like I get creatively drained and refreshed by playing a game. So, like, I've only got so much energy for any certain thing.
Yeah.
And for me, one thing that was really hard this week is I was playing, or I was building a new app at work, and I'm learning a new technology stack, and I'm trying to make things work in a similar way, and just like putting all those pieces back together for me, and apparently that uses the same reservoir of energy I would use for building a game. And
Mhm.
so this has been a very uncreative week for me. I've only run a few games and built a war game and stuff like. Yeah, I'm complaining, right? Um,
Yeah.
but but realistically, what I'm saying is I feel more tired as a result of it.
Mhm.
And that just, then you got to go through all the like time to make the donuts type of motions. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I got to go set up my overlays and I got to get on here and I got to make sure that I've got a social media post. That's the kind of stuff that I really dropped this week was trying to do any setup for this, despite the fact
Mhm.
I was excited about the conversation. I
Mhm.
didn't want to do the housekeeping that makes it possible because that's the part that got unfun immediately. Kind of the
Honestly,
same thing.
I would stream a lot more, like I have conversations like this if I understood any of the work it takes to set up a stream. But I know it's a lot of work, which is kind of why I don't. And I super appreciate that you do. Like we struggled. We had some IT issues. We're kind of behind on schedule, but like we got
Yep.
through it, and we almost didn't. But you were able to figure it out, and I appreciate you doing all the work to set it up, and then also to figure out the technical issues.
I mean, it's nice of you to say. The thing that's really irritating is the fact that I didn't do anything in the end. It was just
Yeah.
logging out and logging back in. So, I mean, I don't feel good about that. That's not something that, strokes that part of my brain either, where I want to create stuff. I don't like when I come up with a solution, which is turn off and turn back on. But what are you going to do? So, yeah, for this, we were talking about the leaving stuff off. I like the game. I like the premise of us having this design conversation. This is something that I very much enjoy. But yeah, like when I get tired, the thing I don't want to do is make social media posts about it and, go hype it and stuff like that. That's not fun.
Mhm. Yeah.
But everybody's got different things they like, right?
Mhm.
So I think for a week where you don't get inspired or a week where you feel like you're recharging, that's a really like useful and common thing.
Mhm.
Also, so when we're talking about these, both of us have immediately gone to things where we have references. So we talk about inspiration. I think one of the great things about having other sources of inspiration is you don't have to re-explain all of the things that you're thinking of. We've
Mhm.
talked about a couple game concepts this week where they just didn't hit right away. And I
Mhm.
think part of that is trying to figure out what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I think there's something nice about being able to say like, oh yeah, Destiny. I played that for like 5 minutes in version one, and I'm not a big first person shooter person, so it
Yeah.
didn't hit for me.
Fair.
But I understand what a ghost is, and I know what a
Mhm.
Destiny is, and so forth. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice to be
Having
able
those
to
frames
draw
of
on
reference,
those.
it helps you also constrain your design as well.
Yeah.
Like if you know you want, like I know there is a Destiny 5e hack or something like that out there somewhere, and like having like knowing where your boundaries are, and like that can really streamline your design process instead of like thinking like, oh, what if I go out on this random tangent like way down left field, which can be good and super creatively fulfilling and everything. It also is a tangent, like in the end. While it can be fulfilling and it can be valuable, like there is something to be said about having knowing your wheelhouse and like what the space is you want to design this thing in. And but also like if you could pull multiple inspirations, that like helps you expand out and have it become a unique thing, but also have boundaries.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next point, which is kind of like the idea of iteration, where you look at something and you say, this isn't necessarily what I want, or I don't want as much of this, or I want more of that.
Mhm.
So I built a war game this week, which is very simple because all I did was basically take the idea of the Blades in the Dark rule system and apply it to the idea of unit conditions for a war game.
Like,
And I decided two things based on that. Number one,
mhm.
Blades in the Dark and most games where you roll dice and then you try to resist and then there's damage applied to a unit are effectively war games. No matter what
Mhm.
else is going on, the dice system relies on that I shot you, no you didn't, yes I did, here's my proof kind of
Yeah.
mechanic that in my opinion is what a war game is.
Mhm.
Um, Secondarily, I took my clash system that I've been working on and I was like, you know what, if I'm going to make a war game, I'm not going to make a war game based on somebody else's work. I'm going to make it based on my work. I got
Yeah.
5 seconds into designing the war game and I realized that I do not like at all the basic premise of my game because if I have to do more math than I have to do playing this other version of the game, I don't want to do it. You know,
Sure.
if I have to go 7 minus 9 equals minus 2, but I get to add 2 here, it's like, you know what? That is not fun. If that gets to the point where that's going to be a lot more bogged down. And Nit, have you gotten a chance to play some tabletop war games with people before?
I've not. As much as I paint the
Okay.
minis and
No, 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 no.
I blow money and like I am Games Workshop's favorite customer, I have not actually played any war games.
Not in any way a call out. What I was going to
Oh
say
yeah,
is
no
the
fair.
part where I have actually played tabletop games with people where they are wargaming, the part that is no fun is the calculation and then the referencing of a rule book to find out why things go the way you think they do.
Yeah,
I
when you have to
will,
bust out the tape measure or the rulers, and then you have to pull up this tome that's about 2 or 3 inches thick, and like you got to flip through that just to resolve one round, like that. I can appreciate that level of crunch because then there is there is a solution. There somewhere in that tome there is a solution to this specific situation, which can be comforting because that means you don't have to do like, oh, like I shot you, no I didn't. Like no, we both know that if we find the answer in this book, this book will let us know did I shoot you or did I not shoot you, which is like which is a nice comforting thing, but also it is a pain in the ass.
And the agreement then becomes if the two of us are playing a war game together and we use this book as reference, the understanding is that either of us can easily look at this book, understand the rules, and the place in the book we look to find our specific example we want.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's no fun. Like, I don't enjoy winning games by a knowledge gap. That
Yeah.
doesn't sound like fun to me. And most of the arguments in my house are based around the idea that I tried to teach someone a game and forgot a specific example, which later comes up in play.
Mhm.
So, you know, everybody has their things. And I think for me, that was where I looked at my game and I said, okay, the idea is fun. This rolling system must go. This will not work. If I had to do this more than 5 times during the night, I would, you know, absolutely be upset. So it's going to
Which
go
is not
on to some other
unsimilar
things.
to how I currently feel about Sharps's rolling system, but I haven't actually tested it. So
Right.
I've made promises that I will test it. I will try it a couple times just to confirm whether or not it is a bad system. But I get you like where like you have designs where you decide it doesn't work, so you just start carving them from parts and putting it in other things. You repurpose it.
Right. So and that's where I'm thinking about it right now. It's like I like a lot of this stuff, but the stuff that I like is not necessarily tied to the core rolling system. So
Mhm.
that's got to go.
Mhm.
And I told you this was going to be a Heart of War, a war game related story. And the reason being, I looked at this, I looked at how simple rolling could be, and I
Mhm.
decided that if you need to look at more than one die or figure out more than one thing about the dice, it's not that much fun. I mean, rolling 8 dice sounds good on paper, and I like the idea, but actually rolling 8 dice and assigning which ones are successful and not, I'm getting close enough to what I don't like about Shadowrun that I just want to stop that concept for a minute.
I feel called out.
Well, I hope all of us feel somewhat called out because that's almost every game I can think of right now.
Yeah,
So, speaking of which, how are you enjoying your Monster of the Week game?
I am enjoying it a lot. I The system has not like sort of shown to me yet. Like it is still kind of just it could be any system to me
Yeah.
at this point. Like it's more the fiction and the other players and like the relationship building both in game and out of game that are the real appeal. The game itself, like because I'm in a Monster of the Week game on Welcome to the Party on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, whatever that is in other time zones. And
Okay.
it is a like Hellboy BPRD sort of fringe sort of inspired type game where like the group is all members of this like official but like not well regarded government agency that goes and hunts monsters and solves problems. And like because of that, and because me being me, I picked the crooked playbook, which is like the criminal type. That playbook is very much designed for you to be in one specific city throughout the game. And
Mm.
because our idea is traveling from town to town, solving these problems, we had to do some rejiggering and changing up. But like even then, even the moves that I picked that aren't tied to specific cities, they they're kind of really bland. Like I picked a move where like you just have minions, you just have a crew that does what you want, and like okay, like they don't give you any like examples, they don't give you any like frame of reference. So I had to speak with
Hmm.
the GM Simon about like where do we see this crew being both useful, so like it doesn't seem like I wasted a move, but doesn't overstep on the fiction, because I don't want to like send the crew to go do a thing and like I don't want to send the crew to go investigate the mystery for us when our job is to investigate the mystery, but I don't want them to kind of just hang out and not be useful. So like there's been a lot of work on our end to kind of make the system work for our game, so that I guess that kind of like rubs the shine off the system a little bit if I have to do enough of the work, because if the people at the table are doing so much work, like man, they might as well just roll their own game.
Right. I totally know what you feel like with that. And I think for me, Monster of the Week is, again, one of those games where there are some things that are left unexplained, I think is what I'm looking for.
Mhm,
Or there's not enough of a meeting between the playbook and the source material
mhm,
in each of the playbooks. Some of them are very simple, and they
mhm,
directly work. But then there are some other ones where it's just like, tell me more.
mhm.
And I feel like that's a hard thing to have in a Powered by the Apocalypse, a real fiction forward type game.
Yeah,
So, okay, inspiration, iteration. So that's kind of like I think where we're at with that. Do we want to talk about playing a war game?
yeah. Let's talk about this war game.
Okay, I'm
I
going to
love this
switch us
idea.
away from this dice screen here. Watch as I use my editor to do this properly here. And so, yep, we're going to see that. We're going to do a transition. It's going to be beauteous. Everyone's going to love it. So, Heart of War. Okay, it's a Forged in the Dark inspired war game. And what that means is I took the rolling system and the basic terms and I used those. So at the bottom here, if we ever get to the copyright part, I do fully credit Forged in the Dark and Blades in the Dark properly, but we were talking about this. First off, our first criteria for a war game, it's not going to be colonialist. This is not about two groups trying to take over a third country that they don't own and have no rights to, because that's just not that cool. That's not something we
Yeah.
need to fictionalize. We can save
Yep.
that for real world politics where it happens too often anyways.
Mhm,
So our backstory here, I gave everybody names now. In the realm of Mycuria, the aging King Roland declared to his only daughter, the Princess Elise, that she must pick one of her many suitors, currently camped outside the royal palace, to wed her and become the new king of the realm. Princess Elise, a wise woman trained in the arts of war, refused. Instead, she cast her father down from his throne and exiled him to the island prison of Bastis. Now, Princess Elise holds a tournament open to people of all genders and nations, noble and common alike. The winner will become the new ruler of the realm. I don't know. That's what I've got for 5 minutes to work last night.
yeah, fair.
But uh-huh.
One thing, like, do you imagine this to be a European kingdom? Because that's how it comes across with these names to me.
So true. So true. And I put in
Okay.
fantasy name generator and I just went through it. I was all, well, as soon as I finished, I was like, well, best case, maybe that'll sound kind of Greek. But no.
Yeah. It.
Um,
I could see like Mediterranean Greek.
maybe. It's
Elise like is more French oriented, but I could
mhm,
see Mycuria, the name of the nation, being a little bit more Mediterranean. Roland also like speaks to me a little bit more
very
France, Spain.
French. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. What I did, I was like, you know what? It's 11:30 at night. I'm gonna let this
Yeah.
sit for
Fair.
now. But you know what? Let's make this official. Let's make a comment over here. Let's improve our names.
And like I don't call you out because like for no reason, not because my own biases, but because I know we've both talked about like wanting more diverse settings and things like that. And
It's
like
true, and that's why I threw in that people of all genders and nations line at the bottom. But
yeah,
you know what?
exactly.
Let's have fun. If we're going to start this from the ground up, let's start with something we're going to enjoy when we play it.
Mhm.
And also, as two people who have European type names, we can use when we want to. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
choice, but still,
we both got the white names.
yeah. I mean, when we want them, we got them, and when we don't, we don't. I actually only have the one choice, but okay. So we've got rules. There's a turn order. We're going to do a coin flip or some other randomization, and I just decided here that I was going to say head always wins or higher is always better. So you don't have to make the
Yeah.
decision yourself. The game already knows. And we're going to take turns. So even in setup, we go, okay, you put down your flag, I put down my flag, blah, 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 back and forth all the time. Not one whole side, then the other whole side, because that's no
Mhm.
fun. And same thing when we're taking actions, we'll go, you take a turn, I take a turn. You take a turn, I take a turn. When we've moved all our stuff, that is the actual turn.
Mhm.
Some of these things clearly need some help to get finalized if this was a real rule book.
Mhm.
The action roll. So action roll in general is 6 is good, 4 to 5 is mixed success, 1 to 3 is failure.
Mhm.
So when we talk about this, this is a war game where, in my opinion, if you take damage, your unit goes off the board immediately. If you
Okay.
have like one armor, your unit
Mhm.
stays for one more round. But I think this is going to be a fast resolving game, and I expect to lose very quickly.
Gotcha. So
So
your armor is more so your hit points than your actual health. Like you have one hit point, and then beyond that, your only protection is how many points of armor you would have beyond that, right?
correct. And if you have
Okay.
armor
Yes.
at all, then that is the same thing as its hit points.
Yeah.
So yep. And then let's see. Range. So range is starting as 0, in other words, touching. Units are in immediate contact square to square. But if you had a range score, you could attack from a square or 2 squares away. That affects
Mhm.
your position so that you are considered controlled.
Mhm.
Um, and then we've got cover down here, where for some reason you have cover from these impassable terrain units, then the concealed unit cannot be effectively targeted, and you can only get lesser effect against it.
Mhm.
So now we get to the standard Blades in the Dark, Forge in the Dark terms, position and effect. So I'm actually going to highlight these right now so that I don't forget they exist when we talk about them in a second. Purple, and I don't think that purple turns out very well. Let's go like a blue. Ah, these are both so washed out. Why did I pick the lightest settings on both of these? Okay, so we've got position and effect. So your
Mhm.
position is like, if you were to do something, how likely are you to get hurt while you do it? And then effect is, if you're going to hurt someone, how bad are you going to hurt them? So for position, if you are at a desperate position, that means that you're also expecting to take damage even when you do a very good job.
Mhm.
If you have a risky position, everything is as written. If you have a controlled position, you need to actually fail to take damage. A mixed
Mhm.
success does not mean damage to you.
Okay.
And then for effect, we've got how much damage you're going to do. When you have lesser effect, you're not going to get any damage, or you're not going to damage the other unit at all, but they will lose freedom. Which basically, the way I'm setting this up is freedom means the next attack against somebody is going to have a controlled position.
Mhm.
So you don't hurt anybody, but you have advantage against them next round.
Mhm.
If you have standard effect, it's as written. And if you have greater effect, you're going to damage them, but you won't take damage yourself.
Mhm.
So that protects you from that 4 to 5 condition. Any questions so far? Anything sounds super bad?
I mean, no, everything sounds good to me.
Okay.
Seems-
So if we have this damage roll, then we know that on a 6, you damage their unit, which means they're probably going out. On a
Mhm.
4 to 5, you're probably going to lose your unit too. And on a
Mhm.
1 to 3, your unit's going to get lost.
Mhm.
And then we talk about armor. If you have armor, you get rid of it, and that's your 1 damage prevention. And if you want to resist taking damage, you resist using your commander's stress bar.
Mhm.
Propaganda is the same kind of action, but instead of using prowess, which is our combat stat, or I should say combat, which is our combat stat now, we use guile, which is our propaganda stat. And then if it works right on a 6, you get to steal their unit.
Mhm.
But your mixed success is you lose your unit and they lose their unit.
Mhm.
And then the 1 to 3 is you lose your unit. Resistance, Blades in the Dark style, you take stress according to 6 minus the highest die result. And it's a straight success failure. But if you succeed, you can take a lot of stress here. If you fail, you can take way more stress.
Mhm.
I
Now, resistance, that's something I'm not super familiar with. Is that something that you do in response, like to one of your units being attacked, or like propaganda coming your way? That's like your defense.
Exactly. So
Okay.
let's say that we're doing the thing where I'm going to attack your unit, you're going to lose them. You say,
Mhm.
okay, well, you succeeded, great job, but I'm going to resist it.
Mhm.
Then you roll your resistance roll. You're going to take some stress, ideally, is what the consequence is supposed to be. But
Mhm.
then you may save your unit.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
that's basically coming down to a commander action. So you've got some sort of tactical, like brilliance that allows you to
Mhm.
keep somebody in the fight.
Yeah.
So movement, if you have speed, then you lose armor from your movement. Let's say this minimum speed can be 1, because I don't think it would be fair to say that you somehow can't move.
Yeah.
And impassable terrain. So we're going to put down places on the board that cannot move. And then if we see those, you have to move around them chess style. You can't go through them on a diagonal or anything like that.
Mhm.
And then credit to you for the idea that impassable terrain may be purchasable in some game setups. So then we've got our commanders, and those are going to be our faction leaders that we're going to be using for the game. Right now, it's like a stress bar that has 10 steps. This is stuff for us to think about. I thought that we would have a commander who would have ambitions. This is like building your playbook. And every ambition you have allows you to unlock a commander action. And so if you have the ambition to be the first to wage battle, your goal is to cross that field and attack one of your enemy units. And that will show you to be decisive. And then you could get a command action like being resilient, where you can remove 1 point of stress from your track when you take it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like a one and done for the game.
Gotcha.
So those are some of the things. And then we talked about stress. You can take 10 stress before you're moved. Your commander gets reputation based on winning these battles, which will also raise your faction on some sort of tournament tier board.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you take 10 stress and you're removed from conflict, does that mean you automatically lose the battle?
Good question. Let's go down to basic game setup, win conditions, and we'll get that. And yeah, let me skip it now. So if we go all the way down here to basic game setup, win conditions. So in this capture the flag scenario we're going to use, our win conditions include having at least 1 stress remaining.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there would be a version where you could somehow have your commander go out and it would still be okay. I don't know what that would look like. Maybe that's a commander action where your units are allowed to fight without you or something else. I don't know. I only came up with 1 scenario right now, but maybe there's stuff in the future.
Yeah.
So this faction stuff I don't think is super exciting right now because they don't exist. We haven't built them out. And then we've got units that are going to be rated in speed, prowess, guile. Speed is our movement. Prowess is our combat. Guile is our propaganda. And then we have to buy units. And I've got some unit ideas there. Yeah. Okay, so they cost 1 point per improvement from the following. You can add to an attribute. You can add armor. You can add range. So if you wanted to, you could spend 10 points for this game on 1 unit. That's up to you. In our basic game setup that we're working on here, which is to capture the flag, we're going to each get 10 stress and 10 points of units. We're going to set up a 10 by 10 grid, which we actually have in Roll20 right now. If I flip to the next tab, you can see it's going to come live any second now. There it is. There's our grid. It's been divided in half. I'm going to flip back to the main rules. It says to divide it in half, decide who goes first, and we do have to figure out our units. I think we should probably do that first. We should buy units. Okay, so I already wrote some unit ideas and some costs here. You certainly don't have to use mine, but if you want to take a couple minutes and think about what kind of units you want, I'm going to shoot for 3 units, I think.
I do not see where we have a pool of for the unit cost.
You're right. I didn't set anything up for this, so we are at the point where we're kind of going on our own.
Yeah, no problem. That's
So
what playtests are for.
Think about that. Yeah, that's right. That's how we do it, right? Okay, where's my canvas? Transparent canvas. I'm drawing some flags right now, real quick.
Well, you had said to me that you wanted maybe 4 to 5 units.
I think that would be ideal.
At the most. So, if we do the math, the most each of these costs is 4. So you could say you started with a pool of 10, you could go all out and go 2 4-cost units and then 2 1-cost units, or you could go you could just go 10 whole 1-cost units, which is a choice, which is a decision you can make, and I think 10 is a good place to start, at least to test.
So in terms of points, you're thinking, or in terms of
because in terms of your pool, your resource pool for purchasing units, right. I suppose, because then that allows you to.
We can really see it happen right now.
Yeah. Because if you do 5, then you're limited to maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Or 5, 2 to 5, and then if you go 10, you're limited to 2 to I suppose 10.
Well, let's say that we're looking at these unit examples here. So if we wanted to do 2 riflemen, right there, that's 8 points.
Yeah. So you could not do 2 riflemen if you had a resource pool of 5.
Right. But we could do 2 riflemen and 2 conscripted if for some reason that was interesting to us. So yeah, I think there's kind of a choice here for sure about what we want to have happen. Okay, let me add some more tokens up here. I realize I don't have a flag token, which I've just made. And then I need to also make a impassable terrain token. So give me just a second here. You can think about your unit costs if you'd like while we're doing that. Why is my flag so much bigger?
And I know since you did want it to not be a super overbearing game, maybe have a limit of any given type of units. That way you can have a higher pool and like sort of give people the option of buying a couple different like, more expensive ones, but then they're not just buying 10 units of conscripted.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair, right? Like people could do that. I don't know how
Yeah.
I feel about that either way. That's a good point. So maybe
Mhm.
something to think about for future
I can
based
tell
on how
you
this
right now, I
goes.
am not going to buy 10 units as conscripted, but
You
like,
know what? I
so,
thought about it. I was like, well, you know what? It might go for that, and that's just gonna be how it goes.
because like if we go by the common like sort of law of TTRPGs, if you're outnumbered in a game where actions and moves are a thing, being outnumbered is like you're at a significant disadvantage. So like regardless of like conscripted being weaker, just them having more actions is going to wear you down a lot better because like the odds, the more you roll, the more chances you have of getting those good rolls and damaging.
Well, that's the good news. Is when we do this, also we're going to be using Fortune in the Dark rolls. So if you have a zero in something, you do have to roll two dice and take the lower.
Yeah.
So there's at least that. There's a good chance you will roll lower more often than higher.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
there's a chance always like of medium to low, but still like the fact that you're rolling more of is still a thing to be considered in the law of averages.
okay, I have my team, which I've been putting on the screen. So if anybody was watching that, they would know. But I'll navigate away from that for right now. And then I'm going to set up the tokens for my team. Do you prefer blue or purple?
Purple, please.
All right. No offense. I thought purple was going to be your color.
No problem.
I was thinking to myself, I think
Uh,
Knit likes purple.
yeah, you said you didn't want to do a game with math, and yet here I am trying to figure out what is left after 7 minus 10, which is 3.
That's
Yes,
true.
3.
Yeah.
Now, is your intention that each side does not know the units of the other side by the time they are by the time they are on the field, or by the time they are on the field, will that be clear?
One more time. You're asking, will they know who is on the other side? Like, will we know which units are which?
Uh, as of now, like I do not know what units you have selected,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
fine. Like, but once we get on the field, will I know what units you have once the battle begins, or is that something I discover as I attack your unit?
Dealer's choice. Which one do you like?
I I could kind of see both. Like infiltrators, they like it wouldn't be clear that you wouldn't see infiltrators on like the overhead view or like from the mountain peak looking down at the battle, but like conscripted you could see and you could tell. So like I could see both arguments for both.
Uh-huh. I could too. So I'm good either way. Do you have a preference?
Let's just make it open for now, and then like maybe
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
open
again,
for
that's
now.
one of those play decisions people could make as they're doing stuff. Okay,
Mhm.
so what I've done, how many units do you think you need?
If we are starting with a resource pool of 10, I've got 5 units.
Wow, good for you. Okay, so here's what I've done. If you look in the Roll20, I'm pasting tokens for you.
Yep, yep, yep.
And each of these tokens is a unit. I'm going to show you my Rifleman 1. I don't know if this shows up on the screen where you can see it. Can you see the bar if we go through it all? It's at least on the overlay for sure, the Twitch view. So I decided that green is speed,
Okay.
blue is prowess, and red is guile, just because it went 1, 2, 3, and I'm not going to take any renaming time right now. And
Mhm.
then aura 1 for me is range, and aura 2 for me is armor.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you have to follow any of those things, but I am saying that if you look at my units, they're all set up consistently right now, and I put 5 tokens down for you so that you can name them as you will. That's weird. I
As
love how it
somebody who
presents
doesn't
them.
know Roll20 for Jack, how do I modify tokens?
So you click on the token, you click the
Okay.
setting wheel. Let's
Uh,
give us a key.
are those on the player layer? Because I don't seem to be able to click on tokens. I
Object
can
and tokens.
do selection box, but
So if you were on the object and tokens, if you click on one of these purple circles, you don't get the 3 dots on top and the wheel and the magnifying glass.
nope. I just get to a selection sort of
I
box.
think it's because I have not said they can be controlled by you.
Okay.
Let me change that so all those are controlled by you.
There we go.
I could
Going
make
to
it
the
all
gear rack.
players if I needed to like
Gotcha.
help you out with this, but I know you're plenty capable for this. So. Okay, and I'm going to write a little text legend here so that we can see what's what. So we know right now blue is speed, correct? Green equals prowess. And red equals guile. Aura 1 equals range. Aura 2 equals armor. Okay, so there's our general guide to what is what.
Okay, I don't see these colors that you're calling out. Let me look on the
When you
Twitch
double
screen.
click on the token and you hit the settings wheel, do you get that?
Mhm. Yeah, I got that, and then it says like bar 1 and has a heart next to it, and then bar
Yeah.
2 with electricity next to it. But I don't see any color
Oh,
callouts.
you don't
And I
get, you
see,
get, interesting. I got these 3 colors. Okay, so your hearts is green, or your hearts is the first one?
yeah, bar 1 is hearts, bar
Okay.
2 is like a lightning bolt, and bar 3 is like the EKG, like pulse
Oh, I wish
thing
I
in
had that for
hospitals.
you. Okay, so I gotta
And then
change some
aura
stuff
1 has
around.
like a yellow box, and then aura 2 has a green box.
Very interesting that we have different displays. Okay. I don't get any of those things. Why is that? Okay, so I put where everybody can see and edit everything. I wonder if that helps.
Let's see. I cannot select or view your unit stats.
Weird. Okay, I think that's because of the fact that I don't have all players location or all players editable. Let's change that too, because that doesn't,
Well,
that's not going to
as long
bother
as
me.
I remember which stats are which, I suppose it's fine.
Yeah, that's already a good question, Mike, right? Can we all remember what everything is? So, okay, so I made it where everybody can edit it, so maybe that'll help you out with seeing it.
Because really, we want to test the mechanics. We don't want to test Roll20.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. If you ever have to do PNG graphics with a transparent background, by the way, and you want something this simple, the Paint 3D program that comes with Windows, not bad.
Okay. I didn't know Windows came with the Paint 3D.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the newer Windows 10 features.
I am just going to go down. Okay. Now I see like some
Uh-oh.
weird stats over each token. Do you see those?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. But I do not see a name for this unit. That's
So under the left-hand side, it says represents character name controlled by. So when you give it a name there, that'll give you your name. Oh, and you have to click the nameplate. Up above where it says name, it says show nameplate, and if you click that, then you get the choice.
where it says show nameplates.
Yep. Where you have your infiltrators, I just click the box where it says show nameplate, and now it'll show it.
There we go. Yeah, I do not know where that says on my edit token screen, but
Weird.
you can do it.
Weird. Okay. I'm just going to go through all your tokens and click that just in case.
Gotcha.
I don't know
Scouts are.
why do they give settings to GMs that they don't give to players like that? I don't know. I guess none of us trust our players. That's no fun. Okay, so that nameplate thing, I enabled it for all your tokens now.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to do it for the flag, too.
Actually, you wrote the top is speed,
Yeah, I went speed, prowess, guile in that order.
prowess, guile. Yeah, I did the same.
Cool.
I think I switched range and armor, but that doesn't matter too much.
I mean, it might at some point, but if we do that
Okay.
wrong, we just have to agree with one another what we were trying to say. I think we
Gotcha.
trust one another.
I'll just make sure to.
Much.
I'm only 2 in, so I can go back and switch those easy. Oh, easy.
Hey, Ray, buddy. Woo! Yes. Woo! I have a raven. Whoa, 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 whoa.
So with 1 unit of infiltrators, 1 unit of scouts, and then 3 units of
Wow, good for you. That's cool.
we believe in empowering the peasants by putting them on the front line.
Yeah, so if you had to name your faction right now, what do you think your faction is?
Oh, we are the nation of Anam. So
All right. Let's get some more text here. Let's come up with a little commander.
or maybe the nation state, since we are all part of the same empire, I suppose. Are nations part of empires? Yeah. Nation states. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's 0-0 anyway. Okay. And infiltrators are. Let's switch out.
Let's not worry about our idea of commanders having, what's the term, ambitions today, unless you really want to get into that.
Yeah. We want to test out
can,
like the actual parts, right?
Let's see how bad that part is, yes. I don't like how everything snaps to this grid for text, though. I wish it did not do that.
Yeah, because that's a big gap between text.
All right, and I'm going to play the Princess's Guard units.
Ooh.
So if I was going to pick commander actions, I would be picking things where I don't back down specifically because it would make me look bad. That was my thought.
Mm-hmm. Let me see, what commander actions are there? Didn't get a good look at those.
If we want to get into them, we can do them.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I know, right? There's some stuff.
Oh, I'd probably do enduring.
Alexander, I'm not going to help you with that right now. You would do enduring? Yeah, enduring is a cool one. I'm going to flip screens for those who are watching so I can look at the commander objectives as well. Yeah, enduring is very cool. To just generate an armor out of nowhere. I think I really like that one. Okay, let's do an ambition and a commander action each.
Sure. Okay. Let's see ambitions. Let's see ambitions.
Oh yeah, I switched the screen. I gotta remember to switch the screen or else people have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, so I feel like some of these are tough to really get a thing, right? So ideally you'd have a balance between having a couple ambitions so that you could have a couple different command actions. I feel like the command actions would be unlocked by any ambition you fulfill. Like, you pick A, you can pick any of B. Like you pick 2 kind of a like lunch combo. But on the other hand, I feel like having a couple ambitions is where you'd want to be. Because some of these are very hard and some of these are very easy.
Well, the issue with ambitions proccing at commands is that some of these you have to wait for the battle to be over.
Right. But if you unlocked it as like some of these maybe you unlock for like a future game, right?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's tough. I think there's like a tough balance.
Yeah, so you're doing the long-term investment.
Right, right. Because some of these like decisive, if you don't get it, you will not get it. Same thing with cautious. You can just not get it and you won't get anything for that game. So, I mean,
but to be fair, decisive, if you get it every battle. Whereas cautious, you only get it on the next battle.
Let's see. If you get it every battle. From that point forward, you mean?
No, like if every battle, if this battle I get first, if I get decisive, I get to use a command action, and then next combat, I get the same opportunity to get decisive as
That's true.
had last time. Whereas cautious, if I get it, it only procs on the next combat. So like, if you from that point you are at an even level of those ones that proc in the same combat, but then those ones that proc next combat where you have to it determines the end of battle. That very first battle, you're at a disadvantage.
It's true.
And then if
I've
you lose a battle, you lose that streak for like the same action.
Yeah, I've also realized that two of these that I've named have been named the same thing. Let's see. Be the first to object. I'm just going to call it winner for now until I come up with something better. Or maybe not even that. Notable. How about notable? That sounds good. That's a start. But I realized two of them are named decisive. That doesn't work, so... Okay. What do you think? Do you want to do an ambition and a command action?
Let's do ambitions. Yeah,
All right, all right.
I'll just make sure to do something that can proc this action.
That's right. Let's get one that wins this time.
Yeah, I will be persuasive.
You're going to be persuasive. Good for you. I'm going to be notable. Because that's what I'm
Now,
all about for this game.
One question about propaganda: is that the same as combat, where we have to be adjacent to each other, or is that something at range?
Do you have range on that unit?
That is a good question. I do. Okay.
Because that's like a loudspeaker or something like that, right?
Yeah, or like in World War II when they flew planes dropping flyers and
That was
stuff
my
like
thought about when I was doing this. I was like, there's a lot of ways you could do propaganda from a distance. That's very common. So, yeah. Okay, and I know what my command action I'm going to take is. When we played Closed Fist, that was one of my big inspirations for wanting ambitions in command. When I started thinking about it, is like it's nice to have some special sauce. If you know if you do something well, you're going to get something out of it.
Mm-hmm. See, persuasive is why I decided to be.
Okay, so your ambition is persuasive.
Yes.
And your command action.
Let's see. Command actions. I will choose.
No rush. Just I've got it on
Yeah.
the screen.
Let's go fortified.
Ooh, good choice. I know you love that impassable terrain.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to point this out too. This is very easy for me to duplicate. So when we need another impassable terrain, there's that sitting off to the side for you.
Sweet.
Okay. So do you want to roll the die or do you want me to roll the die?
You roll the die, please. You made the
Okay.
game. You should roll first.
I'm going to roll a d2. So the agreement will be that if I roll a 2, I'm going first, and if it's a 1, you're going first.
That's good.
Okay, here we go. Well, I wanted you to go first, but what are you going to do? Okay, so let's read over our rules here. My dogs are going to bark for a while. Okay, so first thing we place our flag, and we have to do this in the backmost row of our board. So I've picked the board on the left, and I've placed my flag. Oh my gosh. So yeah, this is normal exploding stuff in the background. Nothing is broken, it's just exploding like it usually would.
Yeah. Fair. It adds to the din of battle. The atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, they're ready for it. Okay, so we did our flags. Part 2 is now our home base. Of course, this is something else I didn't come up with. So let's make one more of the impassable terrains each.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Where's my impassable terrain? Gray, 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 gray. Why are these categorized the way they are? This makes no sense. I'm going to complain for a while. Oh, because I'm on the wrong screen. That's why. Okay, so this gray square here is going to be home base. Actually, you know what? Let me real quick duplicate the home base into colors. This will only take a couple minutes. The good news is the next time we do this, we'll have everything set. Okay, so there's that, and now to upload. It takes almost no time to upload them, it's just going through this process.
Yeah, no worries.
And this will be for our home bases. So your home base will be the purple square. And ideally, once we put these down, we just leave them there.
Hmm. Now, home bases, how do you imagine those function?
That's a good question. I think the idea is that we have to bring our flag to them.
Okay.
And that's all. So if I capture the purple flag and move it onto the blue base, then that is the win condition for the flag. Okay, so you've got a blue base. I'm putting my blue base on the board. You've got a purple base. And then number 3 would be we would have our impassable terrain. So I'm going to put my impassable terrain down. It's pretty smart to put the base so far forward. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
But then your units could block me off from getting to it easier.
I guess it's true. I guess.
Yeah. Let's see. Can we place impassable terrain on each other's sides?
I don't
Or
think
just our
so.
own?
I think for
Okay,
right
just
now,
our
let's say that we're going to do it on our own side.
Yeah.
You know what the worst part is? I think once we place these units, like the impassable terrain even maybe, we should leave this for next game or next session, because we're already at 2:30.
Yeah.
Time flies. So we know what our units are. We know who our commanders are. We have all of our pieces staged on the board. I don't feel like actually putting the pieces down would be a good idea at this point, because then we're going to be thinking about that all this next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we could save this game state and come back to this next time.
And then if there's any changes to the rules, we can go over those changes and adjust accordingly.
It's like we've already got ourselves set with all of our content for next time.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Gotta like that. Okay, so we are going to do outros and then think if there's anybody we can find to go raid. So let's do one thing at a time. Do I want to talk about stuff? I'm doing the last game in the Witcher Crimson and Ash series tomorrow for Salty Sweet Games. That's going to be real fun. I anticipate making things scary and also trying to bring like a good close to it. I'm looking forward to that. And then I'll be doing some Eberron D&D on Wednesday on the Scraticus Academy. And
Nice.
then we'll eventually be back here. How about for yourself?
Not working anything. I've got a couple games over on my itch, which I'll post a link in chat later. I made an adventure for Unbreakable, which has been I won't stop talking about. It's a bunch of Asian adventures by Asian folks and illustrated by Asian folks. Super proud of it. Please check it out. Please buy it. It's a beautiful book, beautiful illustrations. And I am currently on a sort of a campaign this season over on Welcome to the Party on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific when we get up on time. And it is a Monsters of the Week campaign heavily inspired by BPRD and Hellboy and that kind of fiction. It's super fun. Just this week we did a Christmas episode where we had non-denominational gift exchanges, which was super sweet and one of the best game experiences I've ever had, like role-playing experiences. So much
That's
fun.
awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. Very cool. Let's see. We got to figure out a raid. So I see down here a couple options. You could tell me what you think. I don't feel like MCDM needs our business. I feel like that's like fine, but we don't really need to. I see WebDM is around doing Knights Black Agents, and I see Stella Luna is doing a D&D marathon with giveaways. I can see either of those being good choices.
I see Dungeon Commander's on right now.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, if you've got Orion, do you have his Twitch link? Because for whatever reason, I'm apparently not following him.
Let me see if it copies it.
Yeah, if you can just tell me what his handle is on Twitch, that's all I really need.
Oh, it is. Come on, hover. Dungeon Commander, no E before the last R.
Okay. So let's see. We're gonna go raid Dungeon Commander with no E. Let's see. Do we have a raid that works? Yes, we did that right.
Yeah.
Good show.
Looks like they're playing League right now.
Nice. So we'll go say hi to Dungeon Commander. We'll stay online for a second for that. For everybody who's been watching with us, as I click rapidly through those screens, not thinking about that one, thank you. It's always fun talking about game design stuff with you, Nit.
Yeah, I always have a good time. Like as bad a week as I've had, this has been one of the highlights. It's always good talking.
I like the idea of it being a good point for your week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push raid now,
Mhm.
and we're gonna go do that. So this is where we wave.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good one.